Welcome to Pivotal People. Today we're speaking to Hoong Wey Woon. Hoong Wey is the Managing Director for Healthcare at DC Advisory. Thank you so much for coming in this morning. It's really lovely to see you. What I want to do today is just first of all find out a little bit about what you're doing right now. What's going on in your life professionally right now?
Sure. So it's been a busy start after summer. I very much focus on two things that we do. One is what we call mergers and acquisitions. So I have a number of companies that I'll be selling soon. And the other thing is capital advisory, where I raise money for a number of healthcare operators and developers. So that's keeping me busy at the moment. And also we'll be monitoring what's happening to interest rates and what's happening to the government as well. So lots of changes in government. So quite interesting with the new government in place, how things may change. It is. We wait and see.
Okay, so you have, we believe, reached a pinnacle in your career. You've done really well to get where you are, and just like to find out a little bit about what got you from where you were, young boy, to where you are now. Take me back to your childhood and tell me a little bit about growing up and what got you to where you are.
Sure. So deep into my memory.
Yep.
I was actually born in Malaysia.
Okay.
So my parents, my father was a teacher and my mother was a housewife in Malaysia, and they decided to emigrate to the UK when I was 4 years old. So we came here with 2 suitcases.
Do you remember Malaysia then? Do you remember living there?
Bits and pieces.
Yeah.
It's all blur.
Yeah.
But I do remember landing with 2 suitcases.
Wow.
And we went to sleep. We had to sleep in a auntie's flat in Bayswater for a few months because we had nowhere to stay. So we slept on the floor. Yeah. And my father had secured a job as a nurse, actually.
Okay.
In a specialist care hospital.
Okay.
So he finally secured the job, and the hospital was able to find him some accommodation. So we then moved into that. So my formative years was quite disruptive, having come across the country, new country. It's a bit cold. It was February. I seem to remember, even though I was only 4. And then integrating into a new society as well, which was quite tough, I think, actually, for a number of years.
Yeah, I mean, maybe as a 4-year-old, better than if you'd been a teenager at that time. Maybe your parents chose the right time to bring you across at the very early part.
Perhaps, but it was 1980.
Yeah.
The country was a very different place than it is now.
Oh yeah, very
so
much so.
I think there were, and the mix of people has substantially changed over time. So I think the challenges I had perhaps aren't the same as they were historically, but they were certainly great challenges. So then my mother then became a nurse as well. She became an elderly care nurse. She actually had trained years ago. Really? So it's always been in the family, the care element. And I remember growing up in school, and my father would take me, not every year, but once a year, to help out to trips to Thorpe Park with the specialist care people that he used to look after. So I would
even as a young child? Yeah?
Not that young, but probably in like 10, 11, 12, 13. Which was, it was difficult. You saw these people that had complex issues. I spent the day with them. Yeah. As a young child, you felt you bonded with them, but then you'd see them again the next day and they wouldn't remember you. And I found that quite challenging, actually, as a youngster. So.
Yeah, I know my children were involved at a young age as well with elderly care and dementia, and were in dementia homes when they were very, very young.
Yes.
So I get that, and I think it does give you a good understanding of...
It is. It's a very hard life. I would listen to the stories of my mother and father coming home, ignoring the workplace, but actually looking after people and what they had to do and the challenges they had. It's a tough lifestyle. So.
The challenges would have been a lot greater in that time. I mean, I've been in care for a few years, and it was very different in my early days.
Yes.
And for your parents, it would have been the same.
Completely different. I still remember my parents actually left nursing after a number of years and were looking to start a business. They didn't actually. They looked to buy nursing homes. So I actually went along to look at quite a lot of those nursing homes. Well, they were, they still exist, but the ones we have now are completely different from what existed back in the day, which was, I think, the quality wasn't necessarily where you would want to put your parents now. So.
No, you're right. It was the quality was very very basic.
Very basic,
Very,
mainly all house conversions, which still happens, but it's very basic. But also hearing, the stories of care, I feel now it's not 100%, but the regulation certainly has improved care quality.
I don't think you get 4 strangers in a bedroom anymore.
Correct,
You used to in those days.
Yep.
Okay. So what about your education, your young years and your education? What happened then?
Yeah, so my parents were very, maybe instilled in me a strong educational ethos. As immigrants come to this country, as you mentioned, coming with 2 suitcases, it was seen as a route to a better life. So I studied hard in a non-selective school, which, don't get me started on that, but presented challenges in itself where the academic ability is so wide, and I can see how the system may not necessarily promote the best education for people from that, but that's a different issue. However, I studied very hard. I think I was doing well at school, given the circumstances, the lack of resources and the area where I grew up as well. And then through that, became very focused as I progressed through my GCSEs. I did well, then I did my A-levels, and then really wanted to focus on a career.
Yeah.
At the time, I had no real guidance as to what careers could be out there. And my parents actually had a local accountant, and I did a week's work experience in there, luckily, and it was very good. So I went in there, even taught me little things like you should wear a suit. I mean, this is an immigrant country, it doesn't really, you wouldn't strike it, what you could wear to an interview. What you wear to a job interview or
very
whatever it is.
Very few people wear suits now, though.
Yes, not only today. So
Yeah.
life has changed. No. But before, suit, tie,
that's right.
Polish your shoes.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And then through that, did my A-levels and then went to a good university. And then it was really then I started mixing with people from a wide variety of background, and that then opened your eyes to what the art of the possible is. I guess that's what university is.
Yeah. You went to Cambridge?
Yes, I did. I went to Cambridge.
What was your degree?
I did 2 degrees. I did an economics degree and I did a master's in finance degree as well. Yeah. So after that, after university, I applied to quite a few jobs, had offers from accounting firms, the Big Four, or the Big Six as it was then, and then managed to secure some jobs in investment banks. So I started my career off in a bank, which is now called Deutsche Bank, and then moved to Goldman Sachs after that. So
the focus of your success then really is your education, and your parents wish to push you forward within the education. You talk a little bit about going to a non-selective school. Why do you feel that with a non-selective school, my feeling is that you know where you sit in the world. You know where you sit. My children went to a selective school and they were the top 25%. So that where they sat at the bottom, they weren't at the bottom.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And I feel, going back, that a selective school is a good sort of, you would have known you were right at the top, and really right at the top. So going back now, if you went back again and you had the choice, how would you change things? Would you change the way you've done anything?
Gosh, I do think about that sometimes. I think everything to get to where I am now, I've had to learn essentially by myself. With, fortunately, but a bit too late, mentors on the way. Yeah. And I speak to lots of young people who've just left university and worked for me or joined the industry. I said, find yourself a mentor.
Yeah.
And I did not have that till later in life.
Yeah, and that is unusual. A lot of the people we've spoken to have had sort of one person there at the beginning that's sort of been that mentor that's spurred them on.
Yes, because what you don't learn in education is the soft skills.
Yeah.
How you interact with people professionally, how you interact with people personally as well. What the rules of the game are which are unspoken. And that is largely cultural as well, because I used to do and still do business in Asia, the UK, America. And what you realise is how each of those cultures interact is very different from
Is it? So you have to do business in a different way?
Completely. Yeah. Even across Europe, how the French do business to
Really?
the British do business is very different.
Oh, that's interesting. So, give me an example of what you'd do differently if you were doing business in Malaysia, for example.
Well, maybe take Asia as a totality, and so interestingly, I find British and American culture now is much more egalitarian, if that makes sense. It's much more flat.
Yeah.
But if you go to Spain, I didn't realise it's Spain, and Asia is much more hierarchical.
Okay.
So the decisions are generally made from the very, very top, as opposed to here, where you can get much more interaction at a more junior level as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also certain cultures in Asia, it's more of a collective decision rather than an individual decision.
Yeah. So you've got to impress a few members of the board rather than getting through to one person.
A lot of times you don't actually even get access to the board.
Okay.
They are just so far removed.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you deal with the team, and then communication takes days or weeks until any decisions are made.
Okay.
So it's you can get coming from British or American culture. Decisions are generally you want fast decisions, fast moving. Yeah. Where I work now is actually a Japanese investment bank.
Okay.
And we deal a lot with Japanese clients. So what we find with Japanese clients, though, is they move slower. They can pay more, potentially, but they just move slower. And because they have a more collective mindset rather than individualistic mindset.
Oh, interesting. So a little bit about the healthcare area of your work. There's a lot changing. There's a lot going on within healthcare. How do you see the future? How do you see the future of the need of the industry and the future of the financial implications of staffing crisis and the fee rates and
So I focus very much on the social care sector, so elderly care, specialist care, also retirement villages, and increasing education as well for special needs.
Yeah.
I think there are big challenges. As with all industries, I mean, what we've seen since COVID is, as you've mentioned, staff shortages. That seems to be solving itself. There was also then construction costs due to high inflation, so building stuff was a lot more expensive. And I've seen a lot less development, for example, in the last 3-4 years. What does this mean? It's meant actually you've got a lack of supply of new care homes, which is then, as you mentioned, driving up average weekly fees. Which, if I look now in terms of a elderly care, private pay, the fees that are in charge are on the private sector, a lot. And if you think you got to save up, and if your parents unfortunately have to go into a care home, that's I added up the money, and
it's huge. Yeah.
It's a lot of money that goes into it.
Yeah, it is. But then the costs of staffing and the costs of producing, of giving that care is increasing all the time.
Correct,
too.
yes.
So it's difficult. So the future is rosy from your point of view.
So from that social care perspective, education, yes, it is. I mean, just the statistics clearly are we're getting older. There's a lack of supply. And increasingly where it's dementia or special needs, rightly or wrongly, there's a lot of diagnosis now, and everybody seems to have a condition which needs to be treated. And then the government and also private sector need to be able to provide services to be able to help.
That's really, really interesting, and I've been really, really pleased to be able to take you back to the beginning and hopefully tell everybody out there that hard work pays. And education is a really important way of producing, of becoming what you are.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.